Okay, James Brooks. This is Chris McGrory. I also am known as the Signalling Guy on social media, and I'm very excited to be looking at your layout. The first thing I'm going to do is, if I'm in the UK and I'm on platform 1, I'm expecting trains to come the same way as they do on the road in the UK. So I'm expecting, if I'm on platform 1 looking at platform 2, I'm expecting trains to come from my right to my left, and likewise if I'm on platform 2, I'm expecting trains to come from my right to my left, and we'll call that the normal direction of travel, because this is obviously, you've got a single line either side of this, so trains could come from either direction. That's going to be your choice to decide if that's how you want that to play out, but we'll start off with our normal directions and we'll work from there. Now, the first thing you have to do when you are signalling a layout is you look at your points. So when a driver comes to a set of facing points, they're going to have to know which direction they're going in. And what you also do is you tie in the signals to where the facing points are in your signals prove that your facing points are working. So my first signal I'm going to put on the driver's left, assuming that we're coming in this direction, and we've already got to your first decision that you've got to make. So you have to decide if you want trains to always come round here, and as I've said, in the normal direction, go into platform 2. So if that's what you want, then you just need one main signal on a post, one main semaphore on a post. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to have a route into platform 2 as well, then you're going to need 2 signals. Now, all the information that your driver needs here is whether they're going left or right, because both these moves are at the same speed. So the signal at position #1 just wants to look like this. So it wants to be 2 mains, one to the left, one to the right, and that is, the signaller is going to take off whichever one of those signals they want to use, if it's platform 1 or platform 2. Now, I've lost my pen. Let's try this one. Yeah, that works. So #1 I'm going to call, because it's Ravensbrook Junction, I'm going to call it RJ, and I'm going to call it 1 and 3. Because I'm just assuming, I've just decided to assume that you do want to have 2 routes from that point, not just 1. So there you are. I have decided, as Chief Signalling Engineer for the LNER of 1950, that that's how we're going to do it. You of course can have it any way you want, have it totally different if you like, that's up to you. So you will see that I said facing points need a signal to tell the driver where they're going. So I'm assuming that trains are able to approach in this direction, and #2 somewhere before the points on the driver's left, as they almost always are. You want to really be at pains to keep your signals to the driver's left. So #2 is going to protect point set number 9, and again I'm going to assume that you want to be able to go to the good side in platform 1 or platform 2 from this location. So our signal at #2, you'll see by the power of video editing I've sneaked in the #1 that I messed up there. This is #2, and what I've done also, you can see with the numbering, what I'm doing is that because I'm Chief Signalling Engineer for the minute, I've decided that clockwise are going to be the odds, and have I? No, anti-clockwise are going to be the odds, and clockwise are going to be the evens. So at #2 location which is heading clockwise. I have some even numbered signals, and they are going to be called 2, 4 and 6. So because you've got these 3 destinations, this is really interesting little bit of your layout. This is quite a tricky challenge, because to get to good siding 1, you actually kind of head to the right first, but in signalling you're displaying the end destination to your driver. So to get to the good siding, you want to signal furthest to the left, because that, as you're facing the anti-clockwise direction, is the destination that's furthest to the left. Also, because it's a dead end, I'm just going to make that a little shunty semaphore. So the next destination I'm assuming you want is a main route, and that's into platform 1, and that has to be 1 to the right, because that destination is 1 to the right of your good siding. So that's for platform 1, that is for your good siding, and assuming you want platform 2 as a destination from the signal at #2, then that's going to be another main. That should be a bit longer. Okay, so it's high up, that means it's the same class as your platform 1 signal. It's not down here as a little shunt. Again, the reason you're given that shunt is because you're going into a dead end. It might even be occupied by some empty wagons or something, so it has to be a little shunt. And again, I just called them RJ2, that's RJ4, and that is RJ6, because they're all facing anti-clockwise, so I've made them all evens. Now, normally in a station like this, you don't actually have to have a signal. You're not duty bound, but the problem you have here is because you don't have 2 lines leaving your station, you have to have some way of proving that your train at platform 2 heading towards point 9, or your train at platform 1 heading towards point 4. You have to have some way of proving that that there's not a train standing at 9 and that the route ahead is clear. So because you're coming to a single line here, you are actually going to need a signal here, which I'm going to call #8 and #9, and that is because I did all this and I totally forgot about this and then I had to redo it, and I'm not doing this off the top of my head, I'm not that good. So over here, #8 and 9, and they're just going to be straight mainline signals, and all they're there for is to just prove that your route ahead is clear. So how that's done is a bit more complicated, I won't go into that, but because you have a set of points in advance of them and not 2 clear ahead main lines, you can't just set off from your platforms whenever the timetable says you can. Otherwise you can do that, but because of those points ahead of them, you have to have signals at 8 and 9. You've got an option, and because they don't have different routes to their left or their right, they both only have one destination ahead. It's just one straight ahead signal, so you don't need lefts and rights at leaving platforms 1 and 2. Option for you is to think about, as the chief railway engineer, the chief of operations, is do you want trains to leave their non-normal direction? So do you want a train to come into platform 2 in this normal direction and go back on itself, or do you want trains to come around this curve, go into platform 2 and leave in this direction as well? Again, as I've said, obviously I've shown normal directions, but they're just what I would expect on a 2-line bit of railway. Obviously you've got a huge swathe of single line here, so it really is up to you if you want those moves. If you do want those moves, I will on this occasion let you have a signal to the driver's right. So on the opposite ends of the platforms, if you want to go in all directions out of the station, you want just, again, that's just, or not, make it a hash because they're leaving it as an option, but it's just a straight ahead signal, just a straight ahead route because there's only one destination, which is a single line. So you can have those signals at the opposite ends to the driver's right on this occasion. I'll permit it. I'm joking, of course, it's your layout, you do whatever you want with it. So this is an interesting little bit. I think you said that you wanted it sort of up to mid 1950s LNER, and because this isn't the East Coast main line, I kind of feel like this crossover here, it would be a little bit far from Ravensbrook or Gladethorpe to be controlled from either of those. It could be electrically, you could add it on electrically in the 50s, definitely could have been a thing. But I feel like, and I'm not in hock to any to Hornby to sell any extra signal boxes, but if it was me, I feel like I would have an extra signal box here, which I'm going to call Ravensbrook West. Okay, just for fun. But you could make these other Ravensbrook signals. Just looking at the scale of it, for me mechanically, they would be too far away. There is a physical limit on how far you can operate mechanical points, and I feel like this carriage side and crossover is just a bit too far away for either of these boxes. So I've added an extra one in, but you don't need to. But in terms of signaling, you've still got facing points, so you still need to have a signal here, which I am calling #3 according to my notes, and to the driver's left as they approach in this direction. Obviously if they approach in this direction, it doesn't matter, they can't see the signal, they'd have to reverse through the points. So drivers approach in this direction, signals to the left. Same for this signal. Excuse me while I punch the microphone boom. So #3 and #4 are exactly the same because they're going to face opposite directions, and they both have a main route straight ahead and a shunt route to the right. So you're going to go slower through these points. Looks quite a tight crossover. It's going to have to be slower, or it would in 4-foot gauge. You might be able to get away with it in your layout at the same speed, I don't know, without derailing your train. But if you were in mainline practice, you would have a main route, which is the route to the left, so it has to be on the left hand side, and the shunt is to the right, so that has to be lower and to the right, which is telling your driver that's the lower speed and you're going to the right. And again, clockwise, I would be calling #3. #3, I would call RW for Ravensbrook West. Again, you don't have to have a Ravensbrook West if you don't want to shell out for another bloody signal box. So I'll call that 2, so that would be RW2, that would be RW4 at #3 location, and in the #4 location I would make them RW1 and RW3. Again, each signal has a different number because of a different lever. I don't know if I mentioned that when I was talking about these other signals. So I'll call that #3, and again it's just this physically same appearance for RW1 and RW3. So I did say this was a very interesting layout, and this is where it all gets a bit spicy once we get in that inner loop. So if we come from the main line and inside the inner loop, you can come all the way around there, and there's no other sets of points till you get to 6. Now this to me is kind of yard depot. You've got your goods siding, you've got your freight carriage siding, so there's nothing in this section that really worries me, that wouldn't let me, in terms of railway operations, I know these might all be hand points to you, but I would be quite happy to have 6 as hand points, so the train crew just get out and flick that whatever way they want to go. They might be dropping something off in good side 2, Maybe they want to come back up through here, they want to go to the carriage siding, and I'm quite happy as a signalling engineer for all that to be just let the train crew do what they want to do. They know what they're doing. Maybe they're changing some train formations in here, so that's fine for your point set 6 to be your set hand points. So where it gets a bit more interesting is at point set 5. Now, obviously I've added this extra box here, you don't have to, but if we're going with a rationale that these point set 2 and 3 are electrically controlled from further away, then there's no reason that we can't also control 5, or we could control 5 mechanically from my new Ravensbrook West signal box. Typical signal engineer wants to build new signal boxes everywhere. But the problem is, if you have gone all the way around this loop and you're waiting at these signals to come out onto the main line, I can let you operate the hand points at 6, but I can't let you come through point set 5, because then I could have a head-on collision at point set 3. So I need to control access here. I need to have something at 5, and I'm going to have it, if you're coming in that direction, I want it to the driver's left. So this is hash 5. I'm going to have some signals. Now again, you can see this from the camera tripod. Let's go in here. Hash 5. So my original recording of the audio for this page went a bit wonky, but I'll try and figure out what we're saying. Yeah, so hash 5, you can go all the way back round the loop if you want to come back on yourself, because of the jiggery pokery, as we professional signalling engineers say, that's going on with these two sidings. So you can get that main signal, which will bring you all the way back round. Now, what did I say next is the question. I'm probably talking about the destination being to the right. So there's another destination to the right, and that means, go on, draw it in. Yep. Okay, so I've called that 6 to go all the way around the loop. And yet I'm showing your option, that's a straight ahead, that's the most straight ahead route. To the right, I'm going to point to the sidings. Yep, so I'm probably saying that that signal prevents you having that head-on collision if you've got something waiting at those points. So that signal needs to prove that there's nothing ahead for the loop all the way around. Yep, and there is your shunt. That's going to take you one to the right. Again, it's a shunt because it's a siding, it's a dead end. It might have empty wagons in it. Might have another fully formed train in it, who knows. But because it's to the right, it goes to the right of your main signal, and because it's... As I said, this is pretty interesting. So what I feel like doing as Chief Signalling Engineer for this layout is I want also, depending on all this very different options here and train formations that you can make using this freight carriage siding and your goods siding and all this loop that you can go round and back, what I feel like I might also want to do is come from 5 and get onto the main line without going all the way around the loop. So to do that, I would get another shunt move from this location, and I would want it to take me clear of the points here so that I can just drive through, and I'd probably use the viaduct as a stopping point. I wouldn't want my train driver changing ends or getting out and trying to do some jiggery pokery on the viaduct. You try and avoid viaducts and tunnels as stopping places for trains, even back in those days, just because of the dangers associated with them. So what I would do is have this limit of shunt. Obviously I'm in Scotland, but I'm not desperately trying to get St Andrews crossboards onto everyone's layout, I promise. But what I would do is bring you from 5, and you put this limit of shunt board here. Again, it's just a little interesting bit for your layout as well. And your train would come from 5 up to the limit of shunt and back out onto the main line if you didn't want to go all the way around the loop. to come round, or if you had to go this way because of whatever was going on with the two sidings that you've got. So that would be another option. So to do that with your signal, now you're starting at #5 and you're not going further to the left than 6 signal, which will take you all the way back round if you want to go that. So what it is in the same post, because it's the same destination, it's not to the left or to the right, but it's a different move. So if you have this extra little shunt in here, which I will call RW8, change that right, that will bring you to the limit of shunt, and the driver knows when they get 8 that they have to stop here and change ends. Well, not change ends, but they have to come back out and onto the main line, and then they'll get the signal at 4 to take them back out onto the main line. Again, just an option, you don't need it. It's just how I would signal this if I was in charge of this layout, which I'm not. It's your layout, it's up to you to do it however you fancy. So back to the slightly easier stuff. To the driver's left, as you're approaching, you've got to be approaching Gladethorpe Junction in this direction. Just getting drawn arrow. So #6 on the driver's left. Ideally, again, it's with the scale, it's a little bit dodgy, but you don't really want a stop signal on the viaduct if you can avoid it. Ideally, you would have this junction further away down here, kind of in this area, so that you can have a stop signal and fit your whole train so that you don't have carriages over a viaduct, which is kind of topical if you're aware of them stopping the Harry Potter train, I'll call it, just for quickness, because the passengers can open the door and fall off onto the viaduct and, you know, drop 150 feet. That's kind of what it's all about. So you always, even in these days, try and avoid stopping the train on a viaduct. But you know, maybe, you know, this is railways. Sometimes you try and avoid things, but you know, maybe just the layout of the local topography, you can't avoid having a stop signal over a viaduct. Sometimes that's how it is. You could have it down here, so that your decision of whether you're going to Gladethorpe or whether you're going back round to Ravensbrook is made before your train enters the viaduct. You could do that. It might look slightly odd, but that's what it is. That's yeah. If this was my layout, that's probably what I would do. I would have my #6 back here, but it is basically pretty simply your #6 is GJ signals. In what direction they are? Anti-clockwise, so they are odds. So GJ1 and 3, with the aid of my handy pieces from I bought from Leven Valley Trains. They're coming like shop for a rather fancy box. Okay, yeah, isn't that nice? Lovely. Yeah. So they would just be that appearance. It is your route to Gladethorpe Junction is a main, so there's no need to reduce the speed. We're assuming that this curve is at full speed, so there's no difference in the speed in these routes. There's no need to stop here, there's no need to reduce speed around here. So it's just 2 main signals, and all the information these signals are given is, are you going left or are you going right? And that's GJ1, GJ3, at location #6. So that Gladethorpe Junction was nice and easy. I did say this was a really interesting layout to look at for signalling. Point set 10 is the last thing that we're going to have to deal with. Now you've got to be coming at these points in this direction to make use of them, which would suggest that you put a signal here, but as I'm looking at this layout, I feel like this is just some kind of cripple sign. If you've got some wagons in here that aren't behaving, or there's some sort of emergency situation that's happened in the tunnel, I feel like you're using this sign. Now you can't make it hand points the way you made 6, because you could have passengers running over this, And since, I'll stick my neck out and say 1892 in Britain, is illegal to take a train full of passengers over a facing point without a facing point lock. So if you've got an FPL, again, if you're not having all these extra boxes and you're going for long range electrically controlled equipment, which you could in the 50s, then you could have this electrically controlled. I feel to keep it a bit more traditional, what I would have this is an emergency ground frame. So something's gone wrong with your train, you're coming out of the tunnel, and you've got a little set of levers here. So you've got a lock if you need to unlock some sort of key, so that not just any old Tom, Dick and Harry can use it. And then your driver has to move the FPL, move the points and put the FPL back in, and then you can access this emergency siding. That's the option that I would go for. Doesn't mean that's how you have to do it. So if you're going for long distance electrically controlled, then you're going to have more points, and you're going to actually have exactly the same thing that you've got over here at Hash 3. As far as the driver is concerned, there is a main line destination ahead, so that's going to be a main signal, and there is a terminal destination ahead, so that's only a shunt into there, so it's actually going to look the same as the signals at Hash 3. So I will make this what is that? 7. That's 7. Again, to the driver's left as they approach it. Again, it's a stop signal in a tunnel. You don't really want your train stopped in a tunnel, but for emergencies, for whatever reason, again, maybe ideally you would have this side and the entry would be sort of here and it would run to up here. But I noticed you said on Facebook you've already got the layout done. So Hash 7 is just the same as Hash 3 and 4. It is there is a main route straight ahead, which is kind of to your left, and there's a shunt to your right. And other option you could do, of course, is to have yet another signal box. I promise I'm not selling signal boxes on behalf of Hornby. I'm not sponsored, but you could. So I called this, just for laughs, I called this Gladethorpe Tunnel Box, and then you could have GT. What direction are they in? They are anti-clockwise, so they are odds. GT1, GT3. Again, just a wee note on. Back in the 50s, you could. I've done this whole layout in a systematic approach. You could get to one box, you could get to GT, Gladethorpe Tunnel, and find that the clockwise are the odds and the anti-clockwise are the evens, and it's totally different because they just kind of threw it together when they built the box and just numbered the levers as any way they fancied. I've done it with a kind of logical approach to the whole thing. That's really more so that it makes sense as I'm explaining it, rather than how it would have exactly been done in the 50s. You do tend to find older boxes, the lever number in it is a bit, it can be a bit wacky at times, if I'm honest. Again, different regions might have had all their levers properly done. Great Western Route probably had some entirely different setup going on, but that's Great Western for you. So that's it. I'll stick these pictures up on Facebook for you, or get them to you some other way, and probably put the video on YouTube. And main thing to take away from it is that your driver's facing a decision at a set of facing points, and they have to know where they're going. So that is kind of your minimum. Again, it's not cheap. The number of times I've been told signal's not cheap when I'm building 4-foot railways is not countable in the one hand, or two hands. So it's your layout. You do whatever you fancy with it. I don't want you to rush out and say the signaling guy told me I have to buy like 20 signals here, they're all different configurations. So I was very lucky I picked these two up for 20 quid. But there you go. I hope that was interesting insight into how signaling's supposed to work, and I managed, I think, not to forget too many things. But there you go. Thanks very much, James.